We have in the studio today Nathan East, bass player and vocalist. With over 2,000 recordings, East is one of the most recorded bass players in the history of music. He was one of the founding members of the group FOURPLAY and has recorded and performed and co-written songs for such artists as Eric Clapton, Michael Jackson, Quincy Jones, and Elton John.
Hey, hi Nathan, welcome to the Home My Name is Dana podcast.
Great, good to be here.
Again, like I was just saying, I got my bass behind me, and I'm a wannabe bass player, but I've been following you and listening to you for years. So
thank you much.
Yeah, it's been real good. So, I want to start from the beginning. You were born in Philadelphia, moved to San Diego.
Yes.
When did you first start pick the bass up? I believe I've been doing my research. You started off as like a cello player in
okay, all right.
yeah, I got it.
Yeah, I started in junior high school playing cello, and then discovered the bass kind of at the last part of junior high school, and then hit high school, switched and joined the big band and the jazz ensemble, and and started. You just fell in love with it. And I played in church with my brothers. So we actually ended up starting to play around the area.
Okay.
Regardless of denomination, we would play at the La Church services.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's, I think a lot of people start off that way. Yeah. Like I said, I thought you were in the Philadelphia area, because Philadelphia has such a rich history in music, like, Gamble and Huff. The unique sound of Philly. Actually, I have my my Sound of Philly CD set here.
Wow!
So
but, Michael Henderson and Anthony Jackson, Alphonso Johnson, Stanley Clarke. I mean, it's just like, really?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. The Spinners and the Gamble and Huff, just amazing.
Yeah, I love the CD. I mean, like I said, way back in the 60s, 70s, like I said, McFadden and Whitehead, Teddy Pendergrass, Patti LaBelle, and now recent Boys to Men, The Roots, Jill Scott. I mean, it's
unbelievable.
It's incredible. It's
a lot in the water there.
Yeah, a lot in the water. Now, I was listening to some of the songs you did, and I must say, in doing my research here, I couldn't go through all of them. It's insane, but I have questions a little bit later here, but I was listening to some of the songs you've done, like After the Dance with El DeBarge, and you were playing the stand-up bass on that song.
Well, I played stand-up on the video, but I actually played the electric on the actual record.
Okay, yeah, because I was like, kind of side note from it. My parents were actually friends with stand-up bass player Beverly Peer, who played for Bobby Short in at the.
Yeah, well, there's so many great players, and I used to go to Philly for the summers and hang with the family, and then you go down to Broad Street or whatever, and you go in the clubs, and it's just. You just hear musicians you never heard of that were just amazing, and I was able to, try to take a little bit away with me,
Yeah.
By the way, speaking of, Tom Bell, rest in peace.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's I've tried to follow a lot of the, don't want to say old school bass players, but just some of the way the music was different, you can listen to. It's good now, but just listening to some of the old school.
When we heard "For the Love of Money" and Anthony Jackson came up with that intro, I mean, literally, he went to studio. They put a chart in front that said D minor, so he saw D minor, and that's what he came up with. And I'm going, really, genius. I think that got him a co-writing credit on the song.
Okay, yeah, it's just amazing. I mean, there's some other questions that are kind of gonna delve into that, but I want to stick a little bit with your early years, because I know I can do a whole show, and I'm gonna ask you at the end. You're gonna have to come back, because I had so many questions. I was like, I can't ask him all these questions. He's gonna think I'm crazy or something. But
when we were on Questlove Supreme, I think we when we were well into the 2-hour mark.
Yeah, and I listened to that. I listened to that.
And yeah, well, he's one of the supreme musicologists too, and he has access to so much music, and it's a treat, talking to him.
Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah, I had questions about that interview because I have them here that I want to ask you. But with your early years now, like I said, I could do a whole show just on this subject, but I'm just going to ask you real quick. You toured at 16 with Barry White.
Yes,
I
yeah,
mean, that's crazy. That's crazy.
it's great. He came and hired a band that I was in called Power in San Diego, um, and we played this kind of Stax review. So Rufus Thomas and multiple artists, and Barry White was one of the artists. So we were the kind of the house band for everybody. And after we did that gig, he hired our entire band on the spot. Literally that was just our little running around town band. We were all kids. And
Yeah.
my big brother David was in the band, but Barry, had a tour coming up, and he invited us to his office, and he told us, I think we're gonna get paid $500 a week or something like that, and we were giving each other five, like that, really. And so then next thing you know, we got a tuxedo on, playing at the Apollo Theater, and playing Madison Square Garden,
That's
Detroit, Cobo Arena in Detroit, and Kennedy Center. I'm going, man, this is it. I think that's kind of my first, the first realization that I knew that this is what I wanted to do.
Yeah. That's insane. Because I'm sure some of those clubs back then, you had to be 21. Would they just put you like put you in like the base bag and just kind of bring you in? That's
Well, yeah, a lot of tipping, sneaking around going on.
yeah, that I thought that was like I said, I could do a whole show on that one. I was just like that to me was amazing in
And,
itself.
and a lot of those recordings, none of us got credited on those Barry White recordings, because he said, I don't want anybody stealing my sound. So, but Ray Parker Jr. and Wah and Lee Ritenour and a bunch of guys were on those sessions.
Yeah, that's insane. I was listening to something a few years ago, and I can't recall the program. Both Ray Parker and he's had some crazy stories to tell. I was like, wow, okay,
Yeah, it's fun. I always say I went to BWU, Barry White University, because he just knew how to craft a hit record and come up with a bass part and guitar parts, and it was genius the way he would walk around the studio and give everybody a part to play,
that,
and pretty soon you hear this hit developing around you.
that's like I said, that's when I was doing my research for that. I was like, yep, that's another podcast, because I need to. I know there's some other stories. Like I said, heard some Ray Parker Jr. was telling some stories on his, and I was like, wow, you don't realize all the things that go on. Now, on the Questlove, because I did listen to that podcast, and I was like, that's one of the reasons that, not just the reason, but that was one of the reasons I wanted to get you on. They were talking that you were one of the most recorded players in history. I believe you recorded over 2,000 recordings, and I'm sure I'm off by a few thousand. But I was listening to the Quest podcast, and he said you are one of the most used musicians of all times. And you said, I'm truly blessed to be the first phone call an artist make that they make.
It was just a dream of mine to play with a lot of people, and so I remember when Shaka Khan, I read an article, and she said, Anthony Jackson is my favorite bass player, and then I remember thinking, oh man, I want somebody to say that about me. And you look up, and so it's been fun to just become friends with so many great artists, and I think if enough time goes by, the number goes up to 10,000 hours in the studio, but when early 80s, there were hundreds of studios and sessions going on all the time. So literally you could go from one to the next in this town. And there was a point where like literally I was doing 4 sessions a day times 7, 28 sessions a week, ripping around studios.
That's just, I can't even imagine. I have sometimes I look at my calendar and it's like, I can't even, I know there's like, and then to do
Yeah, I
that, I
know.
can't even.
And I still have my calendars from back in the day. So they have 40 years of calendars, and I look back, you're like, oh man, we were in with Whitney that day. And, here's Quincy Jones, Michael Jackson, and it's really fun. I think because when you're in it, you're just trying to achieve, and you got your skates on, and you're
Yeah.
going. That's especially in those days, that's where everybody was they just in it, But to stop and take a look at the date book sometimes is just a lot of fun, and seeing what the sessions were, and to think, wow, that one did pretty well.
That's crazy. And I do have a Quincy Jones question for you, actually. I know you've recorded with many artists like George Harrison for the Beatles. I think on George's final tour. What I can't even imagine what's like playing for a former Beatle. And I know, I heard stories about the Quincy Jones sessions. You would start late, right into the morning. I mean, how that he's just like an icon. He's all, his hands are in so much. Like you're the studio musician. It's just.
Yeah, no, he's almost a century. I mean, he's going to turn 90 in a couple days here on Tuesday, and Lord willing, and he's in great shape. He said he does like 150 Sudoku puzzles a week to keep his mind in shape, and he did one of the best people you ever met, like caring, generous, and just his writing. I mean, what he was writing 50, 60 years ago, those film soundtracks and TV shows, theme for the Bill Cosby Show and Ironside, and just, I mean, everything that he's touched has been golden.
Yeah, yeah, and that's how I feel with you. It's like like I said, I'm wanted to have you for the interview, and I'm like, I can't even ask all these questions. I mean, each question is a show. Like each question is a show. And again, at the end, I definitely want to keep in touch with you, because I definitely want to talk about some of the stuff. Like I can't put it all in. I'm not holding you for 2 hours, so don't worry about that. But
well, it's fun to sort of it's like telling stories to the kids, and they, oh really, what was that, and it's so for us kind of, it's another day at the office, but then somebody coming up, it's like, oh no, let us know, and it was good. I remember when my twins were born, and Greg Fillinggage was over, and he and Michael Jackson were close, and so he had Michael on the phone, and then I got on the phone with Michael, and then I just said, oh, I just had twins. Oh, I love twins. And then he was asking about them, and I thought, wow, this is crazy.
That's crazy. That's crazy. I mean, I think I interviewed years ago Maya Angelou. And it was for when she put the movie out, Down in the Delta. And I'm good around anybody. I mean, I feel my personality. I can, but I'm not like one, not for words. I was speechless. Like, and then I was like so nervous. I was like, do you mind if I take a picture? And she goes, no, sure, baby. She put her arm around me. I have my picture, and she held my hand. I was like, if I faint, I hope it was like she could read the back of a matchbook cover. And
it's just incredible to have people like that, and to be born in a time where people like that were in our lives.
Yeah.
And absolutely, it's a service, keeping their memory and the history of what they went through alive.
Oh yeah, definitely. Now, is there an artist or a group that you haven't played with that you would like to? Because I know you've played with some legends.
That's a good question, and Prince was on that list. Who I just I missed that opportunity, and every time we do these multiple shows, multiple artist shows, and James Taylor shows up, and we see each other, and we go, okay, I hope you don't think this counts as us working together. This is just we just playing a tune. But he's a lovely person. Pat Metheny is another guy that we've jammed up at his house, but never officially done anything. So yeah, he'd be one guy I would just love to do something with.
Yeah, yeah, the Prince, I don't even want to get started with
I know.
Prince. I have a relative that I mean, he knows Prince upside down, so I'm not, you
Wow.
know, I'm not even, but yeah, he was an amazing. I mean, he has stuff that, you know, we haven't heard yet, and hopefully,
No, no,
yeah,
it's incredible. It's
it's
incredible.
it's insane. Now, how do you? I was, like I said, I've been doing my research.
Thank you.
Hey, I don't want to come unprepared. Don't want to be in that situation. How do you keep your spot in such a competitive business? Because one person can be called for a gig, do the session, or they can get somebody else. They could be sick. How do you keep your spot? I listened to the interview you did, and Quincy Jones said, and I'm gonna read my little note here. The only way to mark your territory is to leave something on the table, that to get the call one time, but to get the call back is the other part of the equation. How do you make sure you get the call back and put
That's
something on the table?
that's an excellent question, and because you can't really physically force somebody to dial your number, to have you back. But the only thing you could do is you could leave something with them that if they loved it that much, they would want to have it, and they will go to the phone and pick up the phone and call you, and that's basically any relationship, if you and so in a situation like that, especially when you're working with people like Quincy Jones or who are at the top of the game, your standard has to be pretty high, and then you want to bring it, when you go there. So and they play it back and say, "Man, listen to this," and then obviously too is if the record does well and there's a certain amount of success involved, people sort of get a little bit superstitious. Well, I got to go back to I got to do the same formula and go back to the same people that I used, and um, that's one of the things that Barry White said. I don't put the musician's name because I don't want anybody to steal my sound.
Right?
So we weren't getting the love or the credit, but it's just one of those things where standards have to be very high.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, when you get a call from like an artist or a band and they say, "Hey, Nathan, I'd like you to play on this song," do you get a chance to hear the track they lay down? And if you're not feeling it, I mean, how do you turn them down, or do you turn them down? Because, you might not work again in the future for them. I mean.
Yeah, you normally it works all ways, but for the most part, the first time you're hearing it is when you go into the studio to record it. I remember going in, like Babyface called, and we went over to the studio, and he plays this song, and I'm going, "Oh man, who's that?" He says, "It's Eric," and I'm going, "Oh, that's cool." The song, it turned out to be "Change the World," and he was producing "Change the World," but I had no idea that it was going to be for Eric's record, and that Bass was producing it. Those were the days when we were just working, together, waiting to exhale, and just doing all the records together. So you're kind of in there, and you're not really sure what it's going to go for.
Yeah.
But then, so you hear the song, "Oh man, that's great. Let's do it."
Yeah. I mean, is there a song that you look back and say, "Man, I wish I would have taken that," like somebody got that? I mean,
It's funny. First of all, every song I record, when I listen back, I hear stuff. Oh man, I wish I did that. And then but that's the way in music. A lot of times when I hear music, if there's something I didn't play on, I think to myself, "Oh man, I wish I had a chance to play on that," and just because your approach would be your approach.
yeah.
But yeah, and I end up kind of critiquing my own parts all the time. Just every time it gets to a certain section, I say, "Well, I could have played this," and obviously there's a million different choices as a musician that you have.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And, but the more experience you get, the more you realize that, hey, maybe I should walk up to this chord, or maybe I should walk down to this chord. And you're always making this. Should I play this in the high register or the lower one?
Yeah.
And to this day, it's like I'm still kind of trying to figure that out. Like, okay, let me see. I'll start high, but then I'll drop down to the low for the second verse.
That it's crazy. I couldn't even imagine the thought process that, like I said, you can see my guitar behind. I'm wannabe. I mean, I turn
and
that thing on and it's like, people are like, really, Dana, come on.
and to have I'm the beneficiary of the wisdom of people like Quincy Jones, who like very rarely kind of tells you what to play, but like I'd had, we were doing I Just Can't Stop Loving You, for Michael Jackson, and that he just came out. He says, "Hey Nate, before you drop in that second verse, just hit this little curl, And I'm thinking, why did I think of that? Just brilliant, And so the wisdom of that, and then obviously now, I've used that going into the second verse of a lot of records.
Yeah,
just a little thing that's very simple, but it just kind of gets you from the end of the chorus to the beginning of the next verse in a very seamless way. And it's a genius of, you pick up all these little nuggets and tricks along the way from people, and try to invent a few of your own and incorporate it into your own playing.
yeah.
That's kind of where where it happens.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. Like I said, and again, I'm gonna probably say this 50 times through this interview. I got to have you back on, because I'm just going to talk one subject. I'm trying to put everything in here,
Yeah,
But
we'll do the 30,000-foot view today, and then we can get a little lower next time.
I'm going to hold you on that. Trust me, I'm going to hold you on that.
Sure.
I'm going to jump ahead a little bit to the days when you were with FOURPLAY. You were one of the founding members of that group with, let's see, Bob James, Lee Rittenhauer, Harvey Mason, I think from 91 to 17.
You spot on, 100%.
But wait, here's, I mean, I have a lot of favorite songs. I like the smooth jazz vibe and everything. And my favorite song is 101 Eastbound. I mean,
bless you.
I mean, and I was talking to my brother the other day. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna have, I'm gonna talk to Nathan East this week, blah blah blah. And there's something, and my brother was like, yeah, remember this, because I was down in Texas a few weeks ago, and he's like, yeah, the song 101 Eastbound. I'm like, so my question though, again, but the group did change, as far as different Bob James was the drummer, and Harvey Mason guitarist, Lee Rittenhauer, and then gosh, there's so many things I want to ask.
Larry Carlton, and then Chuck Loeb, who passed away.
Yes.
And when he passed away, it kind of left a big hole in our hearts, and we didn't rush out and say, okay, who's the next guy going to be? Because Chuck kind of encompassed everything that you could ever wish for in a player, And he was from Nyack, New Jersey, Nyack, New York, yeah. And but I used to, just love everything he came up with as a composer, as a soloist, and as a human being, the finer guy. So we sort of, we went 30 years before we lost Chuck, and with 3 amazing guitarists, and now we're kind of just like, okay, now what do we want to do? Still working it out.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you a question on that. But I know your second solo album, you had my favorite song, 101 Eastbound, on that.
Thank you.
And then I'm going to ask you, I think your son played on that, but I'm going to ask you that question. So hold on, because I got my list here, but
it's kind of a family affair, because 101 Eastbound, I was living with my brother Marcel, and when we did the first FOURPLAY album, we had a studio in our house, and each one of us, the band members, were supposed to bring a song in, and I know I was kind of crazy busy running around, and so it was my day was the next day, and I said, oh man, we need so Marcel and I, we went down to our studio, and we were there till 4 a.m, like working on 101 Eastbound.
Yeah.
Took us to the guys, and they, you couldn't wish for a better band to play your song.
No, I mean, like I said, that is like one of my favorite. I love that song. I did on the Chuck Rainey, I did catch an interview. You did talk about, I guess, like he's your mentor, guru. You said and I quote, "I used to buy records because his name was on it. It didn't matter what artist it was." That's
Right, exactly.
pretty
You know,
deep. Yeah.
I wouldn't know the artist, but if his Chuck Rainey's name was on it,
Yeah.
then I was buying that record, because you were going to get a lesson,
Yeah.
you know,
Get a lesson, get
and
some.
you did. I mean, he's just he kind of was the Bible for a lot of
Yeah.
bass players.
Yeah. No, I could imagine. Now, were there any other early influences that you kinda, you know
Oh yeah, James Jamerson, anything that he played on was just unbelievable. Like was a lesson, and then if uh, and then if what even Paul McCartney, um, people like that were like I play bass and what would McCartney do on this song? So depending on the genre, there's some really great, again, Verdine White from Earth, Wind and Fire.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Abraham Laboriel was like he used to play in the clubs out here, and I'd go see him, and he would infect you with his infectious charisma,
yeah, yeah,
and and so there were a handful of really good musicians that Ray Brown, and you listen to all those favorite records of Quincy Jones or whoever, um, and just kind of study how they came up with those really good feeling grooves.
yeah, and I'm gonna ask you another question on that, but I wanna first go to, like, who do you think the future is safe with? Meaning, what young cat now do you think is gonna take it, like, to the next level? Because, or maybe redefining the bass style. There's so many young bassists, taking it there, and also young female bassists like, okay, here we go, Esperanza Spalding, Nick West, maybe defining a new style. And then again, like I said earlier, right across from Philly, from where I'm from in Jersey, in my hometown of Willingboro, Adam Blackstone. What do you think the future is looking like?
Yeah, when I see people like Adam Blackstone, we're in good hands. He gets it, and he's not afraid to kind of go out and it's record and play "Fly Me to the Moon" and some good standards, and he's doing such great work. Esperanza is completely taken it to another level, and I think a lot of young folks are just they're they're understanding what it takes and doing a great job. Jacob Collier, Justin Lee Schultz, and some of these geniuses of not only they play every instrument,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
and so when I hear that, it just makes me think, okay, it's gonna be all right. Even my son Noah,
Yeah.
who we get to be in here in this living room playing all hours of the small hours of the morning,
And
and
that's what I was going to ask you. That I was going to say, speaking of the future, your son, he was on your album, played the piano on the cover Beatles
yeah,
song yesterday.
absolutely. Matter of fact, we did duos songs on each one of my solo albums, and it's inspired us to do a duo album together. So that's what we're working on currently.
That's so awesome because that's what I was going to say. I mean, I'm sure you're a proud dad, moment all
Yeah,
around,
of
and
course.
and it's rewarding to see, your son putting his mark out there. And
Yeah, and he's on tour right now in Europe,
oh wow, okay,
playing with the Cream of Clapton tribute band. So they're and that's his first tour, and he grew up around all these songs, and they recruited him to come play, and he plays wonderful organ and keyboards in the band. So
that's
it's just, as a dad, I couldn't be more proud and supportive.
yeah. Again, I think that's awesome. To kind of you know get the future and see the future and know that it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
Um, who are some of the bass players that you listen to? I think I kind of asked you that in a sense. You didn't answer it. For
Well, and then sorry if you hear
no,
my
yeah, you're good. Hey, it's fine.
um, yeah, I mean, Ron Carter, and people like Ray Brown, Charles Mingus. When I was getting started, those were the staple guys, and Birdie and White from Earth, Wind and Fire, Rocco Prestia from Tower of Power, just like Jaco Pastorius, people that just took the bass to another level. Monk Montgomery was one of the guys that I listened to that made me want to treat the bass as a solo instrument. When I did my solo album, I'm sort of patterning my approach to Monk Montgomery's. Wes Montgomery's brother, Wes, greatest guitar player of all time.
I was gonna say, it's, again, I hate to say, but my first real introduction, I guess when I was, back in the day and now, and when I was doing my research here, the iconic bass line for me, which my little guy back here trying to figure out, was Dennis. Don't look any further. Dennis Edwards.
Hey, come on.
Dun, dun, dun. And I was like, what? Wait, I gotta figure out how to do it. And then I did actually like Louis Johnson's the Stomp bass line.
Yeah, Stomp was crazy.
Got that one, both of those. But wow. You have Stanley Clarke, Larry Graham. But for you, it's I'm like, wow, okay, I could.
Yeah, no, well, Stanley and Larry, the two of those guys were like had machetes out, trimming the path for all of us,
That's crazy. Rocco, Tower Power, James, James, like we said, Chuck Rainey, Ron Carter, Charlie Minus, Anthony Jackson.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
and when somebody asks me, I always I forget more than I remember because there's so many great, great guys out there, I mean, everybody, when we all started, Stanley Clarke was like, man. And then I remember being in a band and the guys said, man, if you're Larry Graham, they brought Graham Central Station down there and everybody just stopped and said, what is going on?
Yeah, that's true. I didn't I forgot about that one, but yeah, that's it's amazing. It's just like I said, you can go on and on and on. There's just so many, but your iconic, that iconic with the Dennis Edwards, I'm like, whoa, I'll figure that one. I'll figure out next time I talk to you. I'm gonna have it figured out. Now, it might not sound quite like yours, but
oh no, I got you.
Okay, thank you. I was gonna say, just be like, okay, it's good.
Yeah, I totally got you.
You're good. How critical are you of your work? Do you ever reflect on the past recordings and songs you've done? Say, critique yourself and say, you know what, I could have played that a different way.
Every song, and I'm either checking out the tone and saying, could I have, the sound, the choice of notes. It's funny because one of the songs we recorded, and we did it at my studio, the bass part on "Giving You the Best That I Got," Anita Baker, and every time I hear one of the runs I played, I meant to just do a little twirl at the end of it, and so I didn't do it. And every time I hear it, I say, man, I should have just put that little tiny bit of extra grease on that, But those are the tiny things that bug me,
Yeah.
And so in pretty much every recording, I can find stuff that I can pick apart. But then at the other side of that is, you do your best and you put it out there, and then let it speak for itself.
Now, have you ever, from your early playing style, I'm sure everything evolves, which is, part of evolution. But, is it kind of cool to see how you've evolved, how you've grown as an artist? I mean, from when you started, of course, till where you're at now.
No, absolutely. It's very, very interesting to see. Recently, a friend of mine had my first audition tape from a club that I was playing in when I first started. It was kind of like just playing all these top 40 tunes. And when I heard it, I said, "Oh man, how did I get that gig with this horrible tone?" And I was playing all over the place. But then when I hear it, I could hear a very young version of myself. Just trying to come up with some good notes. That's all we really have a responsibility of doing, and using our instincts to get come up with whatever tastiest thing we can come up with.
Have you ever played something by mistake and it actually turned out?
Oh yeah. Then you do it again. They say never make the same mistake once.
Right. I heard, I was listening to that Questlove Love podcast interview, and you said You want to make it like you own it when you're playing the music. And when you hear, what you play, I can definitely tell you own it. I mean, do you go to that for everything you do as far as?
Absolutely, yeah. In a in a song, you don't want it to sound, even if you are reading it, you don't want it to sound like you're reading it, because then it would be like and he went down the street, it's like
Yeah.
you get so there has to be a certain a point where you're playing it, and even if it's a pattern that you haven't played before, where you get comfortable enough where you own it and you're not. So now you can let the song play itself, or let it play you.
Hmm.
But having to, and then sometimes it just takes in a while to get to that point. But you want to just sound like you know where you're going. You get ready to go to that bridge, you set it up, slide into it, or whatever you're gonna do.
Yeah.
And just then you're able to lead the ear. Whoever's listening, you're able to kind of, there's a story being told, so you could say, okay, now we're getting ready to go this way. Now we're getting ready to do a left turn,
Yeah.
right turn.
Yeah. I'm going to delve off with just a slight turn here. Not many people know you're an amateur musician, a member of the Magic
Oh,
Castle here in
magician, yeah.
And that's an exclusive private clubhouse. I think you have to be with the Academy of Magic
Magical arts, yeah.
Arts. How did that, how did that evolve when, all this that you do, as a musician?
Yeah, as a kid, I always loved magic, and then sometimes people come in and then they take and put a cigarette out in their hand, and I'm going, what the heck just happened? So I became friends with some magicians, a long time ago, and then they said, well, if you're serious, I'll take you under my wing and show you some stuff, and we'll jam. So I
Yeah.
used to see a few of us magicians used to go to we go to somebody's house, and we take our magic pads, have our coins and cards, and then everybody would just jam and show their versions of what they do, and it's almost like music,
Yeah.
where you take a trick and there's a certain way to perform it, but then you improvise, and then some guys say, oh, you add this to that. Oh man, that's great. So then that's when I said, okay, I want to just be able to do this, because it's something around the world people love. And I joined the Magic Circle in the UK, in London, and you know in Japan. I have kind of like a sensei, a magic sensei, that when I go there, he comes up and shows me the secrets,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's just fun.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's pretty cool. I mean, that's totally, off the path of music to a
Right.
magician, it's
Yeah, and when you walk up to a little kid and pull a coin out of their ear, they get the
yeah.
big kick out of it. It's like they get, oh, life is magic.
Yeah. Hey, if somebody does that to me, I'm like, well, how did that happen? I got money extra. You got any extra money that you can find up there?
Right, exactly. I've been looking in there for some more
I've been
coins
looking
for the
there.
longest.
I need a soda. Can I get another coin? What's it like on the stage when everything is vibing? Like like the whole. Just what is it like? I mean, what is the?
Yeah, and I think that's the ultimate, like, point you get to, where it's like it's going down in real time, and then people are reacting to it in real time. So you have like a circle of energy
Yeah.
that's feeding on itself, and when it's really happening, then it's like a snowball. It just grows, and you feel uh, the power and the magic like nothing else. Really
I,
exciting.
yeah, I couldn't even. I've been to a few concerts, jazz concerts, and it's just like it starts off, and then now you can see everybody's like really, just clicking, and it must be just such an awesome.
Now, when you hear those guys, Miles Davis and those guys, back in the day, and Ron Carter, Herbie Hancock, is just, you're on the edge of your seat just listening to this music. Like, how did they come up with this?
Yeah, I got a whole set of Miles Davis CDs. I've listened to some of them. I just can't understand. It's just like I mean, some of it's okay, and then some of it is like, okay, where were you when you were? I mean, I have the whole set, and I've
Wow.
listened to a lot of it, and
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah, there's incredible set. Yeah, it's and again, it gets back to bands and trust and where people like living on the edge. You know, so
Yeah.
these guys are all thrill seekers. In time, I had a chance to play in the Herbie Hancock Quartet. He just said, you know, just come in and play. You know, every night could be different.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. He was definitely, especially on Miles' side. I don't know where he was sometimes with with what he was
I
playing.
know.
I just don't
He,
know. I
he can
mean,
throw you off the bus too.
oh
You know.
yeah, yeah. I saw a documentary a few months back. He was in with another musician, and I was like, okay, now I kind of understand a little, but I'm like, ooh, okay, where are we going here? I want to ask you, how many bass guitars do you own? And I'm sure each one has a story to tell.
Oh yeah, they do. I mean, I I have a few dozen at least. You know, just because when we're in the design phase with Yamaha, who I've been with over 40 years, you know, we have a lot that we just are kind of keep carving out until we get the sound, the pickups, the style, and everything. So I have several, but then you know when I started, I have my jazz bass, I have acoustic basses. Um, so the collection over the years, it just starts to get, you know, it starts to get wider.
Yeah, I bet.
And
Yeah,
I do play a lot of. I have my first. I remember when Stanley Clark, all bass players had to go get an Olympic bass, you know. So that was one of the first basses I had. Um, but I parted with it after about 40 years, only because it was in the case and I wasn't playing. And I thought this is a beautiful bass that needs to be played. So a young gentleman in England, you know, bought it from me and he sends me and gigging on it and everything. It makes me feel good to see him
yeah,
play.
yeah. That's awesome. That's
But yeah,
awesome.
it's nice to collect. They each have a story. They each have sometimes you use that one on a particular song. So
Yeah.
it's fun to have them around. I have them all, a lot of them on the wall.
Oh, I bet. I bet. I think that's so cool. I think because you can look at each one and be like, oh, I remember I played that for that song
Right,
and
right.
that. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yes,
Um, you
good
know,
stories.
I'm gonna kind of, wrap it up here a little bit, but are you on any tours or any upcoming projects that you're working on?
Matter of fact, I was looking at your Okinawa hat, and I'm off to Japan in a few weeks, and
Uh,
we're gonna.
uh, that's where I was born, Okinawa.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Fantastic! I love
yeah,
Okinawa.
yeah. I haven't been yet. Me and my cousin are. We were trying to get pre-COVID to get over there, and then couldn't get
Okay,
there, and so we're still working on it. I mean, I don't know if you can tell by my background, but I'm very Zen and Japanese and the whole.
fantastic.
Yeah, yeah. So,
So, was your father in the service, and then
yeah, yeah. He was in the Air Force. In the Air
yeah.
Force.
Oh, fantastic!
Yeah, yeah,
Because yeah, they have a nice base over there, and
yeah.
it's I mean it's a beautiful country.
Yeah, yeah, that's where we're going to. I was born in Naha, so he was at Kadena Air Force Base,
Nice,
in Okinawa, and then we'll go to the mainland in Tokyo and, do the $3 tour, I guess. You know,
right? Exactly.
I watch NHK TV all the time.
Yeah,
It's
me too.
yeah,
I
yeah.
love it.
I love it. I love it. I'm on it like every day, all the time, through the
Yeah,
thing.
but we're doing half a dozen shows at the Tokyo Budokan, so
Ah,
we'll be in
okay.
Tokyo for about 3 weeks. So
Yeah.
it's be fun.
I'm gonna have to contact you and find out all the cool places to go whenever we
Absolutely.
decide
Yeah, this is my 81st trip to Japan, so I've been going since 1980.
Oh man,
81.
yeah,
Yes, so,
yeah,
and the last time was as much fun as the first.
yeah. I bet. I just am excited to get across, to cross to see it. I usually end my interviews by asking, my guests, a quote or saying, what is a quote or saying that you go by, and what advice would you give to, young bass players coming up, or any musician, trying to do their thing here in the business?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I always say is do your best and leave the rest. You know, because you really you don't have any control over the way somebody responds, but if you do your best, you know that's all you can give. You know, and so if they feel in it, that's where it becomes the circle, where again they pick up the phone and give you a call back, and that's a lot of time my advice is just give it your best shot.
Yeah.
And, for young musicians too, I just say listen to as much music as you can. There's so many opportunities now, YouTube and IG and Facebook. there's so many, and just do a deep dive into some of the greatest musicians that there's so many guys, and let that kind of get inside of you so you can figure out what your voice is.
Yeah.
And then let her rip.
Oh yeah, definitely. You said there are 4 stages to a musician's career. Nathan East, get me Nathan East, get me the young Nathan East. I must say, I've had the great honor to interview the great Nathan East.
You're too kind. Thank you.
I have. I thank you for being on the podcast. I definitely, want to stay in touch, and
Absolutely, for sure.
because I got so many questions. I tell you, it was so hard breaking this down. It's like I got to hit all these points, but yet I want to talk about just this one.
Yeah, well, that's what I love about just the circle of. I just finished a podcast with someone he was 3 years old when we did the Unplugged album, So but he was telling me how much that album affected him, and so to kind of keep the circle going of the people that, because people that haven't been born now, they're gonna be influenced by what you do.
Yeah.
So that's where the thing of the high standards, and just if you're gonna go in there, leave something, leave some notes behind. That, and again, you're gonna put that little slide, that little grease on there. James Jamerson said, put something on it.
Something on it.
And in my artist works, class where I'm on the faculty there on the online school, I say, please make every single note you play count. Don't give me, all these notes and I could use only, 70% of them. Make every single note count.
Yeah, it's amazing. Again, I really appreciate talking with you. You inspired, I think that's the one reason I started, because something I must have heard back in the day and you played it. And then, like I said, the one that I'm working on is Dennis Edwards.
Wow.
I'm working on it.
Well, that's a total fun one. Make sure you articulate that last line.
Right. And I'll put something on it. If I have to go in the refrigerator and find something to make my hand slide down the thing, I'm going to put something on it.
Exactly. You got to have a little bit of grease on there.
A little bit of grease. I think I got some margarine or butter.
Exactly.
Something I'll spray on there. But again, Nathan, thank you for being on Hello, My Name is Dana podcast. Like I said, we'll definitely keep in touch. Please let me know, what you have coming up in the area. I'm here in LA area. Definitely want to, hopefully get a chance to meet you in person.
Absolutely.
Well, that's it for this edition of Hello, My Name is Dana podcast. Please contact us at drcarter7575@gmail.com and listen to more exciting interviews on Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, or visit us at hellomynameisdana.com.